presidential election results in favor of Trump. Trump surrendered to officials in Georgia last Thursday. It's unknown right now if Trump will have to appear in person or virtually for that appearance. And a judge set a March 4th, 2024 trial date for his federal case in Washington, D.C. Now, that case stems from an indictment for the January 6, 2021 insurrection at the U.S. Capitol building, where Trump is accused of trying to stop lawmakers from declaring Biden the winner of the 2020 presidential election. All right, joining us to discuss, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Marie Pereira, and trial attorney Krista Ramey. Thank you both for joining me today. A lot to discuss. Let's begin with Quanisha Johnson. Marie, I've been dying to get your reaction to that particular sentencing and actually the verdict in that case as well. So let's begin there.
I think she should have been acquitted across the board, to be honest with you, because at the end of the day, she reached out for help. She tried 3 times to call the police and ended up having to flag down her own police. And I think that goes to intent. She had no intent to harm that man. And even though, like I said on one of the other segments, she said bye, I don't believe that she even knew that she shot him mortally. I think that the prosecution put on a good case. And I think that the judge saw also that although there was evidence that she shot him, there were mitigating circumstances, and that she never intended to hurt him. She had history with him. 2 weeks or 3 weeks before, he pushed her on the floor and he smashed her face against the ground, and she was afraid of him. So when you're looking at self-defense, you look at it from the mind state of the person who's being attacked. And she was not the aggressor. She tried to get help. They didn't give her help. She went inside, and he probably came at her like she said he did, and she defended herself. She had the right to do that. He had the history with her. He might have not been a serial battler like you and I were arguing on the other show, but he put hands on her, and that's that. And she was afraid of him. That was her state of mind. She had every right to defend herself. That verdict, I feel, was wrong.
All right, Krista Ramey, you heard Marie. The judge herself did say this was one of the most tragic cases she's ever had to deal with, and she felt the police let both Quanisha and DeMonte Smith, the victim in this case, down. Your thoughts on the overall and ending and outcome of this case?
You know, Michael, you kind of broke up, and I missed the end of that question.
Just your reaction to the sentencing and the overall outcome of the case.
So I agree with Maria. I found this case to be, incredibly tragic. I represent children who are survivors of sexual assault. I tend to side on survivors of domestic violence just naturally as I'm looking at these things. And there was enough evidence, I believe, that was put forth where this is where I'm looking at it, and I get that, there wasn't a long history of sexual assault or battery, rather, in this particular instance. But I believe that there was also evidence that there was a witness that was critical to her case that they were not able to put on, and they believe that there might have been some witness tampering. So I think this is why she's out now on bond pending appeal, which is, I think, a good thing and something that we don't see very frequently in this case. I think that the sentencing, given the verdict, was fair that the judge handed down. I would have liked to have seen it, even more on the side of what the defense was asking for, which I believe was just all probation. But this is what we ended up with, and I think that it was a good decision on the judge not to depart too much from the sentencing guidelines.
Yeah, and Maria, that was going to lead me to my next question, this idea that she is out on bond. Michael Sterling, who represented her, someone who appears often here on Court TV, said that this was the first case he ever had with a kid with a crime like this, where it's a violent crime, where the person has been allowed out on bond while the appeal takes place. Your thoughts on that?
It's because the judge realizes that this was a battered woman and she had a good self-defense claim. And as my co-panelist with the fly blazer says, okay, the judge realizes that there was a missing witness, another girl that he was beating on and who said, I'm going to beat your gluteus maximus off, and if you call the police, I'm going to kill you. That girl didn't come and testify. We don't know why. But her testimony, like my esteemed other co-panelist says, that testimony would have been consequential. And I think the judge used her common sense and her discretion to come up with a fair sentence. And that she did, and to let her out while this is being appealed, because Michael is going to appeal this. And he may win to get another trial. You never know. So they just don't want her being locked up unnecessarily, because at the end of the day, the girl was defending herself against someone who had beat her gluteus maximus off before. And his mama knew this too. So all that witness statement saying, my son this, my son that, at the end of the day, he was weaponless, but he had his hands. That was his weapon, and she could have been killed. That's what it is.
All right, fair enough. Krista Ramey, quickly, your thoughts on the chances on appeal in this case. Marie mentioned very clearly there was a witness out there that they were trying to get a hold of. According to Michael Sterling, the judge was aware that the family of the victim had contacted this witness, so she made herself unavailable. Her testimony to me sounds like important testimony in a case like this. Is there a chance or a good chance on appeal here?
I think it depends on what Michael Sterling can find out, and that is going to, be some legwork that he's going to have to do. But if there is evidence that there was in fact witness tampering, I think that he's got a darn good shot on getting this overturned on appeal. Because if this family did that, if they tampered with this witness, if they threatened her not to cooperate, and then she in fact, was afraid or frightened away from testifying in court, then yes. But the judge had to keep things moving in a trial. You can't allow there to be a stop in the proceedings to allow them to find this witness. So I understand why the trial continued on despite the fact that this witness wasn't present. So I think that it depends on what he can find out from the witness or from others about what witness tampering may have occurred. And I think some of it was online, so I think some of it's available to him already, and we shall see. He's a darn good lawyer. I think that we have a good shot of seeing this overturned on appeal.
Yeah, and at least part of the equation here is whether this was a material witness. As I said, I think this was a material witness. I think that's fair. So these other factors are going to come into play as well. Let's turn now to Donald Trump and his case here in Georgia. We have a date for his arraignment. Apparently, Fonnie Willis, she's really flexing her muscles in this case. She wants to arraign all 19 on that day. And for optics, number one, logistics is going to be an issue, Marie, but also for optics, this plays in her favor. The more you can continue to have them together, the more you can show them as a group, I think it helps the prosecution.
It definitely does show a gang of unruly Republicans, and that's what it does. But at the end of the day, I think it is going to help Donald Trump, because in the end, he has such a base that none of that is going to repeat negatively on him. He's probably going to use it as a fundraising mechanism, and it's going to make the fans think he's just a martyr. Let's vote for Donald all day, every day. Look at that look.
Yeah, he looks like public enemy number one there, and he's playing the role very well. As a matter of fact, you're exactly right. Just around the time when he appeared here in Atlanta, he put up all these requests for more money from his base. So he's going to play the martyr as much as he can to continue to bring that money coming in. Quickly, Christy, in the little time I have left, the issue for him in particular, the act is the call to Raffensperger here, trying to get him to essentially find some votes. He thought the election was rigged in a number of ways. He goes through explaining why he believes that the case, in the face of quite a bit of evidence that suggested it wasn't. All the officials here telling him that it wasn't, but he continued to believe it. Can he argue that this was just sort of a professional conversation, slightly tongue-in-cheek? I think those are viable arguments for him in this case.
Well, they're the arguments that he has. They're the only ones that he really has in this case to push forward. The reality is that it's not what he thinks. If he thinks that, it was just tongue-in-cheek, the evidence kind of suggests otherwise. The evidence is pretty strong that he knew from before long before this phone call was made, that the election in Georgia was not rigged. In fact, this was a mantra that he had been saying from even before the election had begun, before a single vote had been cast. He said that this election will be rigged. And so you can't, you say something enough doesn't make it true, right? And what he, in fact, was doing was systematically trying to intimidate election officials in the state of Georgia to overturn the election and to find votes or lose votes. in any respect. And so I think that it's a tough argument to make on the defense side.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, you know, this is a RICO case, and we know one of the things that a RICO case does is it forces the lower level folks to turn against the top person. So we'll be looking very closely to see if any of those other defendants seeks to turn state's evidence, which I think might be very important in this case. All right, ladies, stand by. I do have to take a break. Did the judge get it right in sentencing Quanisha Johnson to a hybrid 20 years? We want to know your thoughts. Share them on our social media pages, and we may read your comment later on in the show. But first, we're gearing up for our next big trial, the Hollywood obsession murder trial. A man is accused of killing the ex-fiancée of comedian Drew Carey. That's next here on Court TV.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, an alleged murder-for-hire plot in Paradise. We'll bring you the latest developments in the case against Lindsay Shiver. Plus, a fiery statement by the DA overseeing the case against Karen Reed, a Massachusetts woman accused of killing her police officer boyfriend.
What is happening to these innocent people, these